Thank you so much, Jody, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk with us today. Just to give yourself a little introduction and to all of our fans, Jody's an entrepreneur, philanthropist, public speaker, and a mother of two who is an expert in all things bulk and giving. And we'll be working with her this year. And we just want to take the time to sit down and talk with her and just talk all things business, giving, and philanthropy.
Thank you. Love to. Great topic, Matthew, and really excited what you guys are doing over at Toques from the Heart.
Thank you. So I think our first question that we wanted to ask was, what is your background with homelessness? Like, what got you into wanting to support those in need?
Yeah, great story. So I actually graduated in fashion and business and marketing. And my first job out of school, I was working at a sales agency on Queen Street, and very, very high-end agency. And I was selling, $300 jeans to Holt Renfrew and things like that. And we're going back, I'm going to say probably close to 40 years ago. Okay. One night I was leaving the agency and I was going to the hockey game, and I parked my car in the alleyway at Queen and Portland.
Yeah.
And as I went to get in my car, somebody grabbed my ankle and scared the living bejesus out of me. And, it was dark. I was a young girl. I was, I always say I was much thinner and better looking. I was terrified. And it was a gentleman, and he said to me, "Please, ma'am, I didn't mean to startle you. I'm just starving and cold and I have no money." Wow. And I said, "Oh, okay. Hang on one second." And I actually had a blanket in my car, and I had my lunch that I didn't eat in that. So I gave it to him, and he became my friend. Wow. And I asked him where he slept at night, and he slept in the alleyway. And he showed me where he slept. And every morning I started bringing him a coffee and something to eat and, some clothes. And it made me feel really good. And I knew that I was making a difference to him. And after that, I actually got him into housing. And there's a long story, but that was kind of my first intersection in recognizing that homeless people are just like you and me with really unfortunate circumstances. And that's really the first intersection I had. And then I had another one many years later, so probably about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Every year at Christmas, my family used to do a staycation, and we would go downtown, stay in a hotel, and we would go ice skating and play tourists in the city of Toronto. And my son at the time was 3, and we were walking down University Avenue, and there was a guy on the street, and he was freezing. And he said, "I'm really, really cold." And my son said, "Mommy, we have to help that man. He's cold." And so I took off my scarf, and my son went and gave him his gloves. He was 3. You can only imagine the size of his gloves. And I said, "Honey, let me give him my gloves." And he said, "Let's go get him a coffee." Right. And he said to me, "Why is he sleeping on the street? I don't understand." And so we started having a conversation about that. And from that point, I saw like the impact it had on a child. And just a little bit of education and empathy. And, my son went on many years later to win a speech contest about how to solve homelessness in the school system.
That's awesome.
And just because of kind of experiencing it. So I think part of the challenge that I've experienced is just a lot of naivety of people just not, we see somebody on the street or whatever, we kind of put our head down, but, we kind of don't know what to do. And that's really what intrigues me. I always say to everybody, everybody's got a story, right?
Exactly.
Ask them, what's their story?
Yeah, we found a lot of conversations that we've had with those who are experiencing homelessness, whether we're in shelters, whether we're giving out toques in person. It's amazing, just the array of different backgrounds and stories and just different reasons why people were in the situations that they are. And just through giving toques and just through this business, we're able to connect with so many different people and just understand so much more about this issue we have in Canada. And it's really cool to hear that you had such an inspirational story that really just got you into the space and just interested in like wanting to help those in need.
Yeah, I could tell you story after story. I had after I'd already been helping and committing time to doing it. One day I had a president, a colleague of mine, a supplier. She owned an employment agency. She drove a Mercedes. She was the president of the company.
Yeah.
And she always said to me, like, "Why do you spend so much time doing like what you do?" This 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I like, what do you mean? She said, like, your business could be 100 times the size. And I said, well, that's really not what turns me on. I make good money. I've got a good life. Like, how much is enough?
Mm.
And uh, about a year later, I got this phone call and it was her. And she said, I have to apologize. And I said, why? And she said, I really judged you. And I said, okay. And she said, I'm in a women's shelter right now. My husband beat the crap out of me
Oh,
and stole
man.
the keys to my car. And I had to flee in the middle of the night with my kids with the clothing on my back. And I just got a clean pair of underwear and some clothing and a toothbrush. And I knew it came from you. And I can't tell you that that's the only thing that got me through the night, just knowing that somebody cared.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's, or I just shiver. Even I could tell you hundreds of stories like that where, it's just, unfortunately, people like you and me, who've just got bad luck. The guy who got his wife left him, lost his job, was working on a construction site, got injured, was on ODSP. It ran out.
Yeah.
No family, boom, on the streets, right? Like, not good. Nobody
Yeah.
chooses to be homeless. That's the one thing, Matthew.
Yeah. Exactly.
People who are ignorant are like, why don't they get a job? I'm like, really? You think they'd rather just sleep out on the street and almost freeze to death than, let alone the violence? And there's a lot of other sides of it that most people hear. Nobody chooses to live on the street. So listen, I always say they're entrepreneurs. It's just a different kind of journey, right? And they're just struggling. And once you've lost, when you have a roof over your head, you feel safe, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Once you don't have a roof over your head, it's very difficult to get that roof back, especially with the economy we're all living in and the price of housing. And, landlords these days, they can't wait to evict people because when they evict them, they get to raise the rent for the next person.
I know.
And when you have somebody who comes home and their apartment's been locked and they're a single mom and they have a 17-year-old son, and that son has been shipped away to Children's Aid to a group home an hour away because a mother and son can't stay in a shelter together. Was her daughter be okay? So now she doesn't have housing. She doesn't know how she's going to get to work, and her kid's an hour away. Not good.
And you're talking about inflation, and like how it's just so much harder for people just to find like their basic necessities and their basic like needs to live. Like, how important is it to support causes like yours and Toques from the Heart, like at this time of year and this time of the economy?
Well, it's more important than ever because the numbers, I look after, you may want me to tell you what I do to make it a little easier for your people.
Oh yeah, we can redo that question.
Okay.
Okay. I was going to ask if you can give us an elevator pitch on your organizations, that would be awesome.
So I'll do that and then I'll tell you after. So the numbers that we're seeing of shelters, outreach programs, drop-ins, religious organizations, mosques, churches, synagogues, everybody, because it used to be just kind of homeless shelters, but now it's the entire community has embraced what's going on, right? Because there's no one place that can, there's encampments everywhere across the country, across North America. We deal with homelessness and everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's not worse or better anywhere. It's bad everywhere. And normally in the summertime, it's not as bad because it's nice out. People maybe choose to sleep outside or whatever. But I've never seen the shelters so busy, and they were full capacity in the summer. And the temperature's just starting to change right now. When the shelter beds are full, people have to sleep outside. So having a toque and a pair of socks and gloves and a sleeping bag and a blanket and a winter warmth kit, it's vital. It's vital for survival. But we're in a rich country. Like, people shouldn't be sleeping outside.
Yeah.
But there's a million different reasons why they're sleeping outside. There's certain shelters that won't let you in if you have alcohol in your breath, right? Many of them.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about that. I should be drinking if I was homeless. There's no question. There's certain shelters, most of them don't take animals. So if you leave and you become homeless and you have a dog, there's only a handful of them, and they're always full, right?
Yeah.
There's only certain shelters that if you're a couple, if you've got a partner. So there's so many reasons. So there's so many more people. And then there's COVID, right?
Yeah.
As much as we think we kind of are through COVID, there's COVID and things are rampant in shelters. And when you deal in a kind of a group, if you've got any mental health issues, schizophrenia, anything, being in a shelter is really difficult. You're exhausted. And if you're in kind of being able to just sleep,
Yeah,
feeling safe, shelters are not, checking into the hotel, right? There's a
exactly.
lot of, you hear stories all the time of violence, people having to stay awake because their belongings are being stolen, people stealing people's shoes. Like, who would think, right? Like, there's
Yeah,
just story after story. So something like a toque or a pair of gloves or a blanket or sleeping bag, these are critical to survival. But they've got a street value too, right?
yeah,
So they're warmth and they're practical, but they actually do have a street value. And it's we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, but Matthew, thank God for people like you and people like me, because there is a cure to homelessness. There is a solution to homelessness. It's pretty easy. There may not be a cure to cancer, but there is a cure to solution to homelessness. So, like, why aren't we solving it? Right?
yeah,
It's pretty easy. Give them a place to live with supportive housing, but they
exactly.
have to have access to things they need, like food, like social workers, like things, because without that, it's just going to get worse and worse. The numbers are already up. I saw a statistic just last week. The numbers on the streets of Toronto, and you can imagine this is never accurate, are already up over 1,000 people from last year.
Oh my gosh. And we've heard from a lot of the shelters that we're working with too, and a lot of our giving partners, that like just because of the after effects of COVID and because of everything changing with the economy, it's just like there's just so many more people out there seeing that are just in like such a more wide variety of reasons of why they're in there.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the necessary resources to support that many people. So we're just like we're just glad we're able to provide just something as simple as a two could provide people an easy way to give
Yeah.
back and just kind of support them with just like a simple thing, just such as that to keep
Yeah.
someone warm.
Shelters have budgets, they're businesses, right? They may be charities, but they're businesses, right? Now, just imagine when you go to the grocery store now, or you go to the drugstore. The other day, one of my kids went to the drugstore and a tube of toothpaste was $8.99. Like,
Yeah,
that's just insanity, right?
ridiculous.
So if the prices of the basic supplies that they need are going up, right? They can't afford things like toques and gloves and blankets. Those are luxuries. They've got to put food first. They've got to pay their social workers, their employees. So there's the basic expenses they have, and they're barely surviving because they've got government funding,
Mhm.
but then they've also got donors, which haven't been able to come out through COVID. Right? They haven't been able to
Exactly.
have groups of volunteers, and they're still not embracing them to come back. So I've never seen the system be so broken. And it's terrifying. But the great news is partnerships and collaborative partnerships like, Toots in the Heart and Bargains Group and Kits for a Cause. This is what's filling the gaps. And I always say, and I'm sure you've experienced this, when you hand a toque, or a kit to a homeless person,
Yeah,
and a smile, you don't even have to say anything. Really, what is it sending them? One word: hope,
exactly.
right? And
Somebody cares about them. It's just a message that can go a long way.
yeah, and then they're usually like, well, why are you giving me this? So when you're giving it to them with no intentions or no agenda other than because we care, and you know what? We really wish we could do more, but we're thinking about you.
Exactly.
Um, that could give someone that lift to just, keep on going, right? Another day, another week. Wow, like someone does care about me.
Yeah,
So
it's one less thing for them to be stressing about and worrying about when they don't have access to those like warm winter clothing or essential items that they need. It's
right.
just one less thing that could really change their day and change the trajectory of how they're going to be dealing with the winter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and like what your organizations do with and how they combat homelessness and like just a little bit about yourself in those spaces?
Yeah, so I'm a pretty unique person because I have a for-profit, for-purpose business.
Yeah,
I have a charity and I have a social enterprise. So when I talk about what I'm talking about, I've experienced it, right? Because I work with the community every day. But I'm a business person, so I can look at it through different lenses. So my the mothership, as we say, is bargainsgroup.com.
Yeah.
We're located in Toronto. We're 34 years old. And we have huge warehouses just filled with basic necessities. And we supply retail stores. That's what I started off doing. So supplying people, you would think about Winners and stores right across the country. But due to my experiences with the homeless about 25 years ago, homeless shelters started coming to the Bargains Group, because before they were going to the retail stores and buying things like socks and underwear. And
For that
most people
markup
think,
price, yeah.
yeah, and most people think that homeless shelters get everything donated. And most people volunteer. Well, they don't. They have to pay people to work there.
Yeah.
And they have to purchase supplies. So when I found out 25 years ago that they were actually buying socks and underwear from retailers that I was selling them to, I just said, well, just call me directly. I'll give it them to you at 80% off.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to donate too. And that's how I started getting hooked. I was so enamored with it and fascinated by it that my entire company didn't even want to deal with retailers anymore, because the shelters were so respectful of what we did for them. We made it easy. We shipped everything to them. We gave them donations. We gave them credit terms like a regular client. We gave them respect, right? And the more we did, the more we learned. And then we learned all about everything. We became a student. So we became everything from, where to hide a weapon, to lice, to, every bed bugs, every kind of condition you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then we also learned about, different distribution, things like hygiene products. And, some people want single serve, some people want hotel size, some people want full size. There's just so, socks, why are cotton socks? Most people think, well, we'll get them wool socks or like work socks. No, get them cotton socks, because wool is very abrasive and you get calluses, and the average homeless person could walk potentially 10 miles a day.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Toques, don't give red or blue toques out, which I know you know this because they're gang colors.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a million things that we learned and we became very passionate about. And the more we learn the gaps between what they need and the funding they have, I thought, this is crazy. I know lots of people. So I just invited about 20 entrepreneurs and business owners to my warehouse 24 years ago and said, I need you to come on Saturday and bring $100 and don't ask any questions, just trust me. And they did. Wow. And I created my first kit packing event, and I invited the media, and I invited a social worker, and I asked the social worker to educate us on what's really going on and what do we really need to know that we're not hearing. And they did. And then I invited 10 shelters and outreach programs at the very end. We packed these amazing kits. We loaded up these vehicles, and we did it all under 2 hours.
Wow.
And at the end of 2 hours, all the people who were there said, that was the most unbelievable event I've ever done. I want my entire company to do this. And can I bring my family? And I said, okay, well, I wasn't planning on, I thought this was a one-off. Sure. And we called it Project Winter Survival. And fast forward, we've been doing it for 24 years. Sadly, we do it every year in the end of January, where it's super cold, because with global warming, it's not super cold generally in December. And the end of January, the cupboards are bare. Christmas, everyone's really generous at Christmas time. So we want you to be generous and buy lots of toques from the Heart. But after that, their cupboards are bare and it gets really cold. So we committed to doing Project Winter Survival. And we do now, in under 3 hours, we pack $500,000 worth of kits, and we distribute them to over 200 shelters, outreach, and drop-ins. And we rely on the generosity and partnership with people like you. You're going to get involved this year.
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah, we're so excited to be a part of it, and just to be able to contribute to such a crazy giving day like that. It's going to be amazing to have that different impact and be able to give
it's a great day. And people say to me all the time, like, where do you get all the stuff? Well, you know what? I have a multi-million-dollar business, and my suppliers know that they are going to be hit up and said, hey, I just bought 50,000 pairs of gloves. Like, I need 3,000 for my kits. What are you going to give me? And I ask all of them, and they all know. And my buyers do it. My buyers are really proud, and they say, we can buy from lots of people, but you do know that if you support our charity, you're going to be first on our list. And I was mentored by Ed Mervish of Honest Eds, and he taught me how to do philanthropy like this. He said, Jody, you've got a big pencil. You buy a lot of goods. Ask your suppliers. So anyways, I kind of deviated, but my charity, so that kits. And then we found out, we asked the question, what happens to homeless people in the summer? And I thought, it's summer out, right? Like nothing. And we heard that more people die in the summer on our streets of dehydration. So we thought, again, this is not a third world country. So we started Project Water, and we give out 750,000 bottles of water. And we do a summer event where we build summer survival kits. So think about the summer sitting outside, sunscreen, lip balm, hygiene, a summer hat, a reusable water bottle, and obviously water. So those two projects got a lot of attention, and a lot of big donors wanted to be part of it. They wanted to come out, they wanted to pack kits, and they wanted to give us money, because the couple things we never get donated, sleeping bags. Nobody donates, sleeping bags. So we have to raise some money to purchase it. And our goal is to get everything else donated. But they wanted a tax receipt. So they said, Jody, you got to become a charity. So I was running these huge love projects, I called them. So we became a charity, which is called engageandchange.org. But we basically said, we're just going to run these two projects, because our goal is, every year I say it, please put me out of business. I don't want to be packing kits for people living on the streets. People will tell us the second these kits hit the street, generally speaking, there aren't any deaths on the street anymore. Right.
Wow.
And that's what keeps me going. That keeps pretty powerful. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, we saw this big change in society. And I think a lot of it, Matthew, comes from people like your generation. And we started getting like hundreds of phone calls from businesses and corporations saying, you're that woman who packs those kits, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we want to do that. And I'm like, okay. So selfishly, if they were in Toronto, of course, I'd ask them to pitch them to my charity. But 99% of the time they were in a different city, or they were doing a conference or a family get together, and the date didn't coincide. So 2 questions I asked them. One was, do you have a charity or a cause like you'd like to pack kits for? And 76% of them said, no. Who needs help? Can you help match us up to somebody? Yeah. Which was crazy, because remember, I have a business where all the charities shop, right? So I know who needs what, and I hate having to charge them money. So I said, okay. And then the second most important data point was, do you have a budget? And 99% of them had money. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. At the time I was on online dating on match.com, and I thought, I'm going to just create this amazing ecosystem where I'm going to match people who want to help with people that need. And that's what Kits for a Cause is. So, people say, it's amazing how you designed it. I said, I didn't design it. Society needed it. So it's really cool. All day long, I have the best job in the world. I get to play fairy godmother. I just got off the phone before this with a donor who's giving me $58,000. Wow. I'm engaging 130 of their staff, and we're going to be giving out to approximately 5 organizations that are doing mental health. Wow. Dealing with mental health clients. And they're going to get winter work kits with hygiene, like big kits. And they're going to 1,100. We're making 1,170 kits, right? Like, they don't have money for this stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that makes a difference. So it's great to see a shift in society. It's great to see the younger generation demand their employers do this. So we're telling employers, don't call it Kits for Cause. We don't care about our name. We want it to be called your name with the company's name and Community Care Kit Program, because once they have a program, they've made a commitment, and then you can plug and play any kind of charity all year round. In the winter, of course, we need winter clothing, but in the summer, we may need back to school kits, or we may need mental health kits during COVID for the Indigenous communities that got evacuated. Sadly, there's no shortage of charities or causes that need our help.
Exactly. And yeah, I know from my own personal experience, like, we've also had such a cool opportunity to work with some companies as well, and just be that liaison to help them give back. Because if they don't know how to do it, they don't know like where to start. Like a toque is just kind of a cool way for them to get some really cool merchandise, get some really cool, great quality stuff for them. and then they're able to give back and they're able to contribute to the cause of their choice, which is just, I think, a really powerful
And,
message of sharing.
and subliminally, every time they put that toque on, like you're wearing, something inside goes, oh yeah, I love this toque, because it's not just a toque,
Yeah.
right? It's something that they've given, but they've helped out too. And that's what's really cool. The connection, between what they feel and what they're putting on their head is really strong.
I have a couple questions that's around social entrepreneurship and just that topic, because I know you're an expert in the space. Like how important is like the roles of these social entrepreneurs and these businesses that step into the place when no other businesses really will? Like how are social entrepreneurs really helping those who are experiencing homelessness?
Well, I'm going to be really biased. I'm going to say entrepreneurs in general, because social entrepreneurs or social enterprise is a pretty new term.
Yeah.
Right. That I remember Rotman and Ivy, a couple of business schools, told me, they talk about you in our business class. You're like the pioneer of social enterprise. And I said, really, what's social enterprise? I was like, what is it? And they said, oh, it's about making a business and being profitable, but giving back. And I said, really? Because in my world, that's just called a market niche, right? Like, so, I think it's important for all of us in society to give back. Okay. I'm going to preface it by that. I think that if you wake up in the morning, you got to love what you're doing. Okay. If you're an entrepreneur, you wake up in the morning, you don't go to sleep. So forget about even waking up, but you do it, as you know, Matthew, 7 days a week. It's everything you do, right? It's kind of like a drug, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can figure out how to do that, but also how to be kind and contribute, and it doesn't always need to be money or stuff. It could be mentorship, right?
Yeah.
I've had some years where it hasn't been as easy to do it, but I, at any time within my walls, have at least 10 interns from all over the world. I've got someone here now from London, England. I've got all sorts of different types of internships, right? I've got someone who just came out of jail and needed a second chance to get a job on something on their resume. So to me, that's also being a social entrepreneur. I'm not making money, but I'm giving these people a chance to be contributing people to the economy. Because if I give them skills and they can get a job, I may hire them permanently, or someone else will, but then they're contributing to the economy, not taking from it, right?
Yeah.
So I really want people to think about that. Now, companies like you, who I love, who are, sharing their profits by doing something good and giving back something, that's awesome. So we have a program called the Full Circle Donation Program. So we take in donations from companies of all kinds, and we distribute. We have a 1-for-1. Every item that every order that a shelter buys from us or a donor buys to donate, they get to take a free case of donations from this warehouse.
Wow.
So we upcycle. So I'll tell you, one of our favorite companies, who we have a huge relationship with, is Sephora. Okay. They do an incredible job. So, throughout the season, in the cosmetic business, just like the clothing business, lipstick colors or different colors become out of style, maybe packaging changes, things like that. Well, the companies sometimes don't want the stuff back because the transportation costs more than the product. So before Sephora met us, that was a big challenge for them. And a lot of times companies may have to put them in landfill, which means they have to pay to dispose of them.
Yeah.
Well, we got connected. So we get everything from Sephora across Canada. And we're giving, we joke around and say half the time we're giving a case away that costs more than the order. But imagine like a women's shelter, right? Opening up their package and getting underwear and socks and toques and gloves, and then getting, a case of lipstick for all the ladies that it's $28 in the store of lipstick. Like how good that makes them feel. So upcycling is really, really important, and it's good for our environment. And, I always say one man's garbage is another man's gold, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really, really another really cool thing that we're doing. But really, it's all about the collaborative economy. So being a social entrepreneur, I get asked this all the time. There's a lot of people who have some really great ideas, but at the end of the day, if you can't make money, it's really difficult, right?
Yeah.
So I always say you got to figure out how to make money and feed yourself first, because that's important. If you're not getting fed, you're not going to be a great social entrepreneur, right? So figure out how you're going to make money first,
Yeah.
and then figure out while you're making money, how can you help society at the same time? Maybe you have to increase your price a little bit
Mm.
because someone's got to pay for that toque you're giving away, right?
Yeah. It
That's
was a really
okay.
it was a really honest conversation we had with ourselves when we were first starting the company, where we were like, in order to have a bigger impact and grow the business and to really hit those numbers that we want to hit, like donating to 35,000 Canadians experiencing homelessness on any given night that need a toque to stay warm, we knew we had to create a functioning business first that was able to support
Right.
itself and those in need. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to kind of get all that figured out to be at the point where we're at today.
But as prices and costs are rising, you've been in business a couple of years now,
Yeah.
you're going to have to edge your price up, because at the end of the day, people say to me all the time, how do you do so much charity work? And I say, well, like, I got to do it at work, because, for a long time, I was, even when I was not a single mom, I was a hockey mom. I volunteered on everything. I ran a couple of companies. I ran a charity. I was busy, right? Who's not busy these days? We're all busy. The traditional model of volunteering when I was growing up. So think about probably your grandmother.
Yeah.
They volunteered. A lot of the grandmothers didn't work, so they volunteered at the school, or they volunteered at the church. They had time. They had time to volunteer. No working parents have time to volunteer. So as business leaders, I also think it's our duty not just to give back, but it's our duty to give back during business hours and empower our employees to be part of it between 9 to 5. Because if you can do that, then everybody wins. The employees are like wowed by having an employer that allows them to do that. They're actually getting paid to do volunteer work, right? A lot of people say to me, are you crazy? I'm like, really? Take a look at a lot of my people who've been here 15, 20 years, right?
Mhm.
It's not because they get paid more than anybody else. It's not because I have very fancy offices. It's because we share that giving back culture. And one of our core values is we consciously care about each other and about the community. So being a social enterprise, there's a lot of people I feel are potentially taking advantage of that word. So I would just say, be a business owner, be profitable, and be kind. Like, really, that's what it's about. And whatever that means, sometimes the people who make the least amount of money are the most generous. And your kindness can come through donating a toque,
Yeah.
Donating money. And it can also come from donating your time and mentoring people.
Awesome. So Jody, what can people do to really make a difference this winter?
Well, firstly, buy a toque from you, right? Because if we had 35,000 people buying toques from you, you'd have a great business, and 35,000 people would be keeping warm. Okay. So that's number one. And if not, I always say, be kind. If you walk by somebody on the street, just say hi and smile. Like, start there. If you can strike up a conversation, even better, but be kind. And if you work for a company or an organization where they're looking to give back and do something, contact us and be the catalyst. Start a Kits for a Cause event in your local community, at your company, at your church, at your school, right?
Yeah.
People like Matthew and I, we want to change society. We want to change the way things look. And just imagine if everybody bought toques from Matthew and built kits from Kits for a Cause, the government would have billions of dollars that they weren't supplying for things, for the shelters to buy. And that money could be put into housing, which is the number one thing, healthcare, things that the money should be put in.
Yeah.
So we're living in a broken community right now, and it's up to all of us. It's not up to the government. It's up to all of us to think about how can we make a difference. And what you're doing, Matthew, and what we're doing at Kits for Cause, they're disruptive entrepreneurial models, and they work because we can't rely. Entrepreneurs are the base of the economy, and we're the ones who can make change really, really quickly.
Yeah, I would fully agree there. We know just from personal anecdotes and talking with the nonprofits that we're working with that just the simple act of just giving a certain item that they know they don't have to worry about anymore. Like they can reallocate their resources, time, and money towards just things that really need the attention, need to get done. And I'm glad we're able to find a way to really give people an easy way to give back and contribute to that positive messaging and positive change.
Yeah, and there's a trust factor. When somebody buys a toque from you, they can see the impact in their hand. They can see one toque from you equals another toque for somebody. And that's the other thing. People have trust issues, understandably. So when they deal with toques or kits, they know where their money is going, and they can feel comforted to know that they are making a difference, and they can be part of the impact that we're making and allowing them to make.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jody, for your time today. Really appreciate it. We can't wait to connect later on in the year and really make an impact at the Project Winter Warmth.
Yeah, we'll see you soon at Project Winter Survival.
Yeah.
All right. Take care.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.